we're going to take a close look at 7 habits that turned my life around completely in just 1 week. Yes, you heard that correctly, 1 week. I realize it sounds almost unbelievable, but I promise you these aren't just the typical tips you come across all the time. These are genuine, unfiltered, and sincere habits that I personally wove into my everyday life. I went through the challenges, the breakthroughs, and the victories, and the change I underwent was genuinely remarkable. I'm really excited to share these with you because they've made such a deep impression on my life, and I truly think they can do the same for you. Whether you're aiming to enhance your efficiency, boost your mental well-being, or simply create a beneficial shift in your day-to-day existence, these habits can guide you there. So grab yourself a coffee, get cozy, and let's jump straight in. Believe me, you'll want to stay until the finish because these habits aren't just ideas. They're concrete, doable measures you can begin using right away. On top of that, I'll be telling some personal stories and sharing reflections from my own path, giving you a genuine and unfiltered glimpse into how these habits worked out for me. So without any more delay, let's begin. Habit 1: rising early. The first habit that reshaped my life was getting up early. Now, I'll be totally straightforward with you. I was never someone who loved mornings. My bed was my closest companion, and I'd hit snooze more times than I could ever count. Mornings were a frantic scramble, and I frequently felt like I was beginning my day on the wrong note. But I chose to give early rising a chance, and honestly, it was a complete game changer. I began by setting my alarm for 5 a.m. Those initial few days were tough. I recall hauling myself out of bed, feeling drowsy and questioning if this was truly worthwhile. But I kept going, and by the 3rd day, something remarkable started unfolding. I started to value the quiet and serenity of the early morning hours. There was something almost enchanting about being conscious before everyone else, when everything was tranquil and peaceful. With those additional morning hours, I discovered time for things I never seemed to have time for previously. I kicked off my day with some gentle exercise. Nothing too extreme, just a bit of stretching or a short run around the area. This not only perked me up but also gave me energy for the rest of the day. I also set aside time to meditate and establish my goals for the day. These brief moments of awareness made a huge impact on my general attitude and output. Another unexpected upside of rising early was that I no longer felt hurried. I had plenty of time to enjoy a nourishing breakfast, sip my coffee slowly, and arrange my day. This calm beginning established a favorable mood for the whole day. I was more structured, less stressed, and experienced a stronger sense of command over my time. One personal memory that really sticks out was the morning I saw the sunrise from my balcony. It was a straightforward yet incredibly lovely moment as the sky shifted colors and the earth slowly came to life. I felt a profound sense of thankfulness and calm. It was right then that I genuinely grasped the strength of waking up early. Now, early rising might not be for everyone, but I urge you to give it a shot, even if it's just for 1 week. Begin with just 15 minutes earlier than your typical wake-up time and slowly build up. You might be astonished at how much of a beneficial effect it can have on your existence. It's not merely about having extra hours in the day, but about utilizing those hours to craft a more aware, deliberate, and satisfying beginning to your day. Habit 2: working out every day. Continuing on the subject of exercise, daily movement was habit number 2 that genuinely revolutionized my life. Now, let me be honest, I wasn't consistently the most energetic individual. I used to come up with every excuse imaginable to dodge exercising. I'm too worn out, I don't have time, or I'll begin tomorrow. Does that ring a bell? But eventually, I decided enough was sufficient. I dedicated myself to moving my body daily for a week, and the outcomes were astonishing. I began modestly, just 20 minutes each day, mixing it up between yoga, jogging, and strength training. I wanted to keep it engaging so I wouldn't lose interest and stop midway. The first few days were hard. My muscles hurt and I felt drained. But I reminded myself why I was doing this: to feel improved, both physically and psychologically. By the 4th day, something wonderful occurred. I got up feeling more invigorated. My disposition had lifted significantly. I was less grumpy and more upbeat. I understood that those 20 minutes of movement weren't solely about burning calories or developing muscle. They were about carving out time to concentrate on myself, to let go of stress, and to elevate my endorphins. One morning, I recall putting on my running shoes for a jog. It was a fresh, bright day, and as I ran, I experienced a feeling of liberation and lucidity that I hadn't felt in ages. It was just me, the open path, and my reflections. That sense of bond with myself and the environment around me was truly uplifting. I also began noticing bodily changes. My posture got better, I felt more powerful, and I observed a shift in my general fitness. But the most significant alteration was in my way of thinking. Exercise turned into my opportunity to detach from the world and reconnect with myself. It transformed into a type of self-nurturing instead of an obligation. Another personal standout was experimenting with yoga for the first time. I was doubtful initially, assuming I wasn't bendy enough or that it wouldn't count as a genuine workout. But after a few sessions, I grew to love it. Yoga instructed me to be in the moment, to inhale deeply, and to pay attention to my body. It was a life-changing journey that went past the physical advantages. Adding daily exercise to my schedule made me understand that looking after my body directly influences my psychological health and overall joy. It's not about being flawless or driving yourself to extremes. It's about discovering a type of movement you like and making it a steady part of your life. So if you're similar to how I was and finding it hard to begin, my guidance is to start modestly. Find something you enjoy, whether it's dancing, hiking, or even just a quick walk. Dedicate yourself to just a few minutes each day and slowly increase from there. Believe me, the advantages you'll gain will be absolutely worth the work. It's a habit that has the capacity to change not just your physique, but your whole perspective on life. Habit 3, writing in a journal. Habit number 3 is keeping a journal. Now, I used to believe journaling was only for individuals who had tons of spare time or were naturally reflective. I had doubts. Who has the time to sit and record their day when so much is occurring? But 1 week of steady journaling entirely transformed my viewpoint, and it grew into a foundation of my personal development path. I began simply every evening before sleep. I set aside just 10 minutes for journaling. I purchased a basic notebook and a pen that felt nice in my hand. No fancy apps, no stress to make it look attractive, just me and my ideas. The first night, I looked at the empty page uncertain what to put down. But then I started with something fundamental: how my day unfolded, what made me happy, and what I found challenging. As the days passed, I began to explore more deeply. I recorded my aspirations, my anxieties, my dreams, and even my uncertainties. It was like holding a conversation with myself, and that's when the enchantment occurred. I started to see patterns in my thoughts and actions. I understood that some of the concerns I had were completely outside my influence, while others were aspects where I could take practical measures. One evening, I recall writing about an especially demanding day at work. By transferring my thoughts to paper, I was able to handle my feelings more effectively. I wrote about what exactly worried me, how it affected me, and what I could approach differently next time. This basic act of contemplation helped me achieve clarity and feel more in charge of my emotions. Another impactful element of journaling was monitoring my advancement. I recorded small successes and achievements, no matter how insignificant they seemed. Looking back at those notes filled me with a feeling of achievement and encouraged me to continue progressing. For example, I wrote about a presentation I was anxious about and how I got ready for it. Seeing my preparation steps and the favorable result documented in my journal was extremely uplifting. I also initiated a thankfulness part in my journal. Each day, I wrote down 3 things I was thankful for. This routine redirected my attention from what was absent in my life to valuing what I currently had. It was a basic yet meaningful change that introduced more optimism into my everyday existence. One especially memorable note was about a spontaneous act of kindness I received. A stranger assisted me when I was having trouble with my grocery bags. Writing about this kind deed not only made me feel appreciative but also motivated me to spread kindness further. Through journaling, I uncovered a lot about myself, my wants, my fears, my capabilities, and my limitations. It evolved into a type of therapy, a method to unravel the tangled mess of ideas and feelings that we all hold. It offered a secure space where I could be fully sincere with myself, free from worry about criticism. If you've never attempted journaling, I strongly recommend you begin. Don't fret about writing flawlessly or having deep ideas. Just put down whatever occurs to you. It could be a flow of awareness, a summary of your day, or thoughts on a certain event. Allow yourself the liberty to convey whatever you're experiencing. You might be astonished at how much understanding and calm it introduces into your existence. Keep in mind, it's not about what you record. It's about the practice of recording itself. Habit 4, eating with awareness. Next is eating with awareness. This was a significant one for me because, like numerous people, I used to eat while moving, barely focusing on what or how much I was taking in. My meals were frequently hurried and diverted events, consumed while scrolling on my phone or typing on my computer. I didn't recognize how much this was harming my general health until I chose to try mindful eating for 1 week. Mindful eating is about giving complete focus to the event of eating and drinking, both inside and outside the body. It's about relishing each mouthful, observing the tastes, textures, and even the sounds of your food. So I committed to eating all my meals mindfully. I started by arranging the environment for my meals. I cleared my dining table, arranged a pleasant spot for myself, and got rid of any interruptions. No phone, no TV, no laptop. It felt a bit odd at first to sit silently with my meal, but it rapidly turned into a relaxing practice. I started each meal with a few deep breaths to ground myself and direct my focus to the current moment. One of the primary things I observed was how much more I appreciated my food. I took the time to genuinely taste and value each bite. Foods I had consumed many times before unexpectedly had fresh, delightful tastes and textures that I had never truly noticed. For instance, the snap of fresh veggies and the sweetness of ripe fruit grew far more distinct. It was like encountering food in high clarity. Another major shift was how much more content I felt after meals. By eating gradually and mindfully, I allowed my body time to indicate when it was complete. This was a significant change for me, as I used to eat rapidly and frequently ended up overeating. By focusing on my hunger and fullness indicators, I discovered that I naturally consumed less and felt more satisfied. One unforgettable experience was with a basic bowl of oatmeal. Normally, I would gulp it down without a second idea, but this time I took it slowly, appreciating the creamy texture and the faint sweetness of the honey I poured on top. It turned into a minute of appreciation and awareness that established a good mood for the remainder of my day. I also began to observe how various foods influenced me. Heavy, processed items left me feeling lethargic and bloated, while fresh, whole foods made me feel energetic and light. This consciousness led me to choose better options organically, without feeling denied or limited. Another part of mindful eating is recognizing the emotional ties we have with food. I started to identify when I was eating from boredom, tension, or emotional ease rather than real hunger. This understanding was strong. Rather than thoughtlessly snacking, I could deal with the root emotion. Maybe I required a rest, some calm, or a discussion with a friend rather than a bag of chips. There was one specific evening when I wanted something sweet after supper. Rather than automatically getting dessert, I paused and questioned if I was genuinely hungry or just looking for a prize after a long day. I understood I wasn't really hungry and chose a warm cup of herbal tea instead. It was a minor win that highlighted how impactful mindful eating can be. Adding mindful eating to my life was a transformative experience. It assisted me in creating a more positive connection with food, enhanced my digestion, and even boosted my general feeling of health. It's a practice I've kept up beyond that first week, and I can't suggest it strongly enough. If you're curious about trying mindful eating, begin with just one meal daily. Sit down without interruptions, take a few deep breaths, and savor each mouthful. Focus on the tastes, textures, and how the food affects you. You might be amazed at how this straightforward habit can shift your whole eating experience. It's a lovely method to reconnect with your body and genuinely value the fuel that food gives. Habit 5. Cutting down on screen time. Habit number 5 is cutting down on screen time. This one was especially tough for me, and I imagine it could be for many of you too. We exist in a digital era, and it's extremely simple to get pulled into endless hours of scrolling through social media, binge-watching programs, or checking emails. But I understood that all this screen use was harming my mental health, my efficiency, and even my sleep. So I chose to establish some limits and observe what occurred. First, I set a daily cap of 1 hour for non-work-related screen time. This meant no mindless scrolling through Instagram, no endless YouTube marathons, and no late-night TV binges. It was hard at first. I had grown so used to filling every free moment with screen time, but I recognized I needed to implement a shift. The primary thing I observed was how much additional time I had in my day. I hadn't understood how much of my time was being consumed by screens until I deliberately restricted it. With those extra hours, I found myself rediscovering pastimes and interests I had set aside. I selected a book I had been wanting to read, started doodling and drawing again, and even attempted cooking new recipes. One evening, rather than watching TV after supper, I chose to stroll in the park. The fresh air, the noises of the outdoors, and the basic action of moving my body felt incredibly refreshing. It was a stark difference to the usual screen-related tiredness I felt. That walk turned into a treasured part of my everyday schedule, something I anticipated and appreciated greatly. Another important change was in my sleep quality. I used to carry my phone to bed, scrolling through social media or watching videos until I felt drowsy. But this practice often left me feeling alert and unsettled, causing inadequate sleep. By cutting down on screen time, particularly before sleep, I discovered it much simpler to relax and fall asleep. I began a nighttime ritual that excluded screens, reading a physical book, meditating, or simply thinking over my day. This shift resulted in deeper, more peaceful sleep and made a huge impact on my general energy levels. I also observed improvements in my mental health. Without the steady flow of news updates, social media contrasts, and digital interruptions, I felt less worried and more in the moment. I was more concentrated during discussions, more attentive to those around me, and more involved in my everyday tasks. It was as if a haze had cleared, letting me perceive and experience life more sharply. One especially unforgettable day was when I invested an entire afternoon at a neighborhood cafe with just a notebook and a pen. I recorded my thoughts, mapped out some objectives, and even drew a little. It was such a serene and efficient period, free from digital disruptions. I felt more linked to myself and my environment in a manner that screens had never permitted. Obviously, there were instances of temptation and slip-ups along the way. But each time I caught myself going for my phone out of routine, I softly reminded myself of the advantages I was encountering and steered my attention towards something more satisfying. Cutting down on screen time isn't about totally removing technology from your existence. It's about forming a more positive equilibrium and being more deliberate with your time. If you're experiencing overload or detachment, I urge you to attempt setting some screen time boundaries. Start modestly, maybe with an hour less each day, and slowly expand it. Utilize that extra time to reconnect with yourself, your family, and the environment around you. You might be astonished at how much fuller and more satisfying life can be when you move away from screens and participate more in the actual world. Alright everyone, that brings us to the conclusion of our exploration of the 7 habits that significantly altered my life in just 1 week. It's been an amazing journey, not only putting these habits into practice but also discussing them with you. Each of these habits has the ability to generate meaningful, positive transformations in your life, and I genuinely think that if they could work for me, they can work for anyone. If you felt motivated by any of these habits, I encourage you to experiment with them yourself. Begin modestly, maybe with 1 habit, and observe how it goes. Modify them to match what suits your way of life and requirements. Keep in mind, the aim isn't flawlessness, it's advancement. It's about making small, achievable adjustments that build up into significant shifts over time. I'd really like to hear about your experiences, so please leave a comment below sharing which habit you're considering taking on, or any questions you may have about beginning. Your input and stories are what make this group so wonderful and encouraging. And if you discovered this video beneficial, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you won't miss any of our upcoming material. We have many more insights and suggestions coming your way that you won't want to overlook. Sharing this video with friends or family who might gain from these habits could also create a huge impact in their lives. Thank you so much for watching, and keep in mind, small adjustments lead to significant outcomes. Let's keep progressing, keep developing, and turn our daily routines into impactful moments of self-betterment. See you in the next video. Stay awesome, everyone.